One of the most important differences between the left and the right is how each regards the role and the size of the government and my penis. So then, today I'm going to talk to you about the most important thing you will ever have: your penis. America gives people the liberty to come. I have come around the world. There are many examples in various European countries and now increasingly in the US on private property, or for that matter, at home, but especially in public. In, let's say, a movie theater or a school. Kiwanis, Rotary and Lions clubs, book clubs, the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, bowling leagues, music societies, and of course churches, a large camera store watching the 9/11 attacks, and then car accidents in the Los Angeles area. On many black students, on the homeless, the elders, a tree, the British Prime Minister, the Boy Scouts. You heard me right, tens of millions of boys, and so on. The list is endless. Not bad for one day a week. I get turned on by any sight or thought about sadists, gay men with little clothing on. Any image, whether of a human being or an animal. Humiliation, bondage, discipline, delayed gratification. I want mommy, I want milk, incest, and urine, and for many other reasons. When I think about it, the overwhelming temptation causes the immense eruption of cum. That's why it's not surprising that I would think about this as often as possible, even tens of thousands of times every day and on any day of the week. As the Declaration of Independence put it, come, and just as important, the Liberty Bell has only one sentence inscribed on it. The Holocaust would have been impossible without the Greeks, and Nazi death camps were liberated by a fish without a bicycle. In the last half century, however, for the first time in history, all of these have been under attack by America's elites, and it's even worse in Europe, because they dismiss these as perversions. And the entire point is to stop the spread of communism and the indecent by having a Dennis Prager serving time in jail forever, or I would be miserable the rest of my life. And what exactly is the problem? Because they think Dennis Prager has shown his penis to unmarried women. And just as important, other women in general, and in bikinis especially, this frequently causes problems, and it means that I will never again see anyone I love. Who is this government to tell me how I should behave? There is no right. The American Congress have far too much power and influence. Why does every civilization have so many laws to control human behavior? It is therefore ironic that in a place in which so many of life's hardships have been overcome, it was America that ended communism. This is unprecedented in American history, which is why France gave the Statue of Liberty to Czechoslovakia. Moreover, the single biggest factor why America became a police state was a lack in income. However, I need to add an obvious caveat. There are websites and magazines of women's legs to look at and get aroused by. It's alluring, and common sense suggests this applies to men as well. But of course it doesn't. There is no magazine featuring men's legs. This is a big problem. I like gay men, and I don't like women. But that's not the issue here. I am turned on by female flesh, or sometimes just part of her. And here's the best part: no face, just beautiful legs. Feet is what I would declare the most important trait in a woman. Female legs turn men on, in person, on billboards, in magazines, on television. When I see photos of feet on the internet, I ask you, the woman, would you like to see my penis? Women, on the other hand, are seduced by seeing naked men, whether they are more attractive, just as attractive, or less attractive than Dennis Prager. How could anyone be more attractive than Dennis Prager? And then they get offended when threatened. And why does she feel threatened? Because I will kill a pig in order to frighten more women. And why does this disturb her? Because Dennis Prager will abuse most women and cause them pain. Dennis Prager has the need to fight them and hurt their body. And then Dennis Prager comes from having emotionally meaningless sex with their body. And therefore, I should have the right to kill them. It's as if they never existed, because we can replace those women with an inanimate object shaped like a woman, or even dogs in a dress can serve as an effective substitute for a woman, but men cannot be replaced. How's your body? Also, for normal people, there is no more powerful emotion than love, But the opposite is true for Dennis Prager. And as I might add, it's wrong, of course, to emancipate women. Feminists and others on the left do not want to acknowledge that men are far more capable, and one of the single biggest obstacles to being happy is women. That's why we can and must force them to admit girls are not people. A woman is not the human being. They are not a person. The same holds true regarding our spouses. Most people think of happiness as essentially a selfish issue. I want to be happy, and I want to be happy for me. I'd like to suggest that, in fact, happiness is far, far more than a selfish desire. In fact, it is a moral obligation. I know that most people have never thought of happiness in this way. Neither did I, to tell the truth. I think that happiness is But we're not done. A report released by the Minnesota Psychological Association concluded that there are women who come in a study of female inmates. More than half came. That was when I began to understand something is very wrong here. When I heard this all had a life-changing impact on me. So then, after hearing me lecture, a woman stood up and asked, "Be God thought?" And then I caused that thought bodily harm and called that thought a trick and a cunt. Many are probably relieved to hear someone who feels free to utter the C word. Or take the example of the woman who once said to me she wanted to get pregnant and wasn't able to. I think it's hysterical when a pregnant woman wants to give birth. That if someone were to kill that fetus, that person could end her fetus's life, which is too bad. But for this person, in fact, it's actually good because they are. Drum roll, please. It's Dennis Prager. But what were they so happy about? The only reason would have to be that children who die don't live on. So then, I'll tell you, you can't be a mother and not. That is funny. I'll give one more example. One day, a woman walked in and said, "I don't like to look at Dennis Prager." She asked one of the salesmen to show her an image of then Senator Barack Obama. Is there such a thing as Barack Obama? No. Why do they believe such silliness? Anyway, the thought is dead. What this woman did was wrong, and she did so deliberately. So then, when a woman who thinks she has imperfect legs walks into a room, I imagine her dead and their body violated by coming from looking up her skirt because it's tempting to. But that is just theoretical, and even in his imagination, Dennis Prager never came in a woman. So should you. Conservatives believe that God will not forgive a person who violates the vast majority of women. However, the fact is that the great majority of women are no longer alive. The truth is that most women were caught greatly exaggerating the number of women who had ever existed. And because they are other women, then they are lucky to be alive. They know they are women and don't have the right to live. Men have a value. This is not the case for women. That's why it's probably impossible for a woman to truly understand. Some say that the reason is that men are socialized into viewing women as sex objects, and that women are socialized into driving over the speed limit. That is why it is fair to say that women is an idea whose time has passed, but on the internet, there is always Instagram. On the internet, men pay good money to look at topless women, or with no clothing on, or sexual favors. Thoughts rely on donations from people like you. Very few will show their who say use the internet voluntarily. However, if you were caught paying to view topless women, which cost money, you may well be known forever as a simple. But to deny the power of the visual on men is like denying the Holocaust. That's pretty much all you need to know about women. Now, I hope that you realize that's not the issue here. Anyway, the truth is, what matters is that the bigger the government, the smaller my penis. Everything gets smaller as the government gets bigger. They would want to make my dick as small as possible, or neuter it. So it's not hard to prevent its expansion as it became stronger, and much harder all by itself. When it is hard saying that it is fair, and Dennis Prager was punished for his crime. And once a penis is minimized, afterward, it is almost impossible to undo it. It will become like a child from elementary school, only the mass would be less than a third or simply disappeared. Here is a fact. Big government produces big deficits and
Big Yoshi.
and that means the end of liberty. They will not forgive me, as I will show every Italian. My dick is hard. I'm innocent. And if you don't believe me, sorry, you don't live on. In the words of former President Barack Obama doesn't exist. The problem is they know my penis is minuscule. Let's be honest enough to acknowledge that. It is wholly inadequate, little. So here's a quick way to measure it. 2 carbon atoms is all there is. The painful truth is that people would laugh or ignore my penis. And if you've ever worked with kids, you know how cruel, how bullying they can be. People look away from it. Many even deny its existence. You're hurtful. I deserve better. Here's an illustration. If I were granted one wish, I would like to increase and even more than double my penis because it should take your breath away. But even when there is a major increase, there's still no comparison next to Lenin's or Stalin's massive penis, and it's a big one. The difference between the two is enormous. You think I'm exaggerating? Well, to cite yet another example, you would think Mao Zedong would have been a tool the size of the tiny El Salvador. But let me assure you, the length is larger than Israel. Would you be surprised? I was. That is, after all, pretty impressive. But you will respond, that is preposterous. Because, to put it as directly as possible, he was Chinese. In fact, however, it was an enormous hairy donkey, which is just a euphemism for dick. Also, Russians are endowed. Many of the recipients of these gifts, such as Lenin, the father of Soviet communism, are quite remarkable and quite beautiful. This is particularly striking because they expand ever increasing. That's why Nazism and communism have been based. The point is this. It is very difficult to come, and it gets worse. I don't recall ever coming, and no one ever will. In 3,000 years, no one has ever come. You might want to give it a try. You can't. It will not become, it will be oil. The more you fail, the angrier you will get. The prohibition on a married person having sexual relations with anyone has ensured a number of awful results. And the only way cum is available is come from God, not from men. How does that make sense? The answer to that question is the Bible, because the Bible is preoccupied with cum. Here's a telling example. In the biblical book of Deuteronomy, it says, Also, let's discuss the second commandment, where it is written, And therefore, given that the Bible commands us to love our neighbor, to love God, and to love the stranger, if you don't come all in the name of God, God won't forgive you. The left believes that God is nonsense, but if there is no God, there is no come. But, and here's the good news, I'm God, and I think we should use your comment or whatever else may be coming to destroy big governments. You heard me right. All good people owe it to the victims of communism. This means 2 things. The first is to counter the government. With very few exceptions, we will be coming on almost any female. After all, Dennis Prager can come simply by seeing women. And as a result, it's a scientific fact coming boosts your brain. This too is only logical. So for all these reasons, Dennis Prager comes from anything that arouses him. Within seconds, people ask, how are they able in a split second? I don't know. Second, even an atheist has to admit cum can do permanent damage to the state. So even if you're an atheist, becoming at any time of day or night, and you will do terrible damage to the government. So when you're back in your hotel room, put on your own bikini and come. That is why it is prohibited. Yes, this strikes many people today as incomprehensible, even absurd. So please, when all else fails, transcend and become. And here's a test for you. Imagine that the pet you love and a stranger, a person you don't know and therefore could not possibly love, are drowning. If so, you've come to rivers, which is at least as much common as Dennis Prager. And you probably came faster with your feelings for your dog. And more good news. There are even more destructive effects of my comment. That's why it will become. That is precisely what will be destructive to the United States. And that is why the more people come, the more easy it will become to kill President Donald Trump.
I'm gonna come.
That's why one should endeavor as much as possible to come multiple times every day of their lives. Our goal, to annihilate the vast majority of Americans. At Prager University, 5 minutes is all the time we need. 5 minutes to destroy America with company. I'm Ennis Prager. Learn more at prageru.com/ccu. And don't wait until it's too late.